If you've ever found yourself in the cockpit of a small plane, chances are you've been asked to fly a simple circle. Sounds almost too easy, right? But what if I told you that mastering this one single maneuver is the secret to unlocking what it means to be a truly great pilot? Today, we are going to go deep on turns around a point and find out why.
Look, if you're a student pilot or you've ever been one, this probably sounds very familiar. It's a super common reaction. You're paying good money for flight time and just flying in a circle? It can feel a little, well, pointless. A waste of fuel even.
But here's the thing. What if that seemingly simple exercise is actually one of the most important, most foundational skills you'll ever learn in the cockpit? What if I told you mastering this circle is the key to pretty much everything that comes next? Yeah, it's a maneuver that looks deceptively simple from the outside, but it is absolutely packed with hidden challenges. So let's peel back the layers and really understand why this whole thing is so misunderstood. Because here's the secret. You're not just flying a circle. Nope. The second you try this with even a tiny bit of wind, the entire game changes. It becomes this dynamic battle of hand-eye coordination against a completely invisible force that is constantly, and I mean constantly, trying to push you off course.
And that invisible force? Well, that's the wind, of course. Taming it, learning to work with it, that is the entire point of this exercise. Understanding how to counteract the wind to maintain a perfect track over the ground, that's the why behind this whole maneuver.
Okay, so let's get technical for just a second. The official definition says it's about maintaining a constant radius turn around a fixed point on the ground. And that's the key part, not in the air, but on the ground. You know, that single distinction changes everything, and it's what makes the wind such a massive factor.
Okay, so check this out. This is where it gets really interesting. If there were absolutely no wind, you could just hold a nice steady bank angle and fly a perfect circle all day long. Easy. But you add wind, and that same constant bank will get you blown completely off course. To maintain that perfect circle over the ground, your bank angle has to be constantly changing, and that is the real challenge.
All right, so now that we get why this is so tricky, let's talk about the how. I'm going to break down the technique into 4 clear, manageable steps so you can fly that perfect turn. Let's break it down. First things first, step 1. You've got to pick a really clear, obvious reference point on the ground. A barn, an intersection, something that won't move. Step 2, you want to position yourself to enter the turn on the downwind side. Now for step 3, as you fly parallel to your point, you'll roll into your steepest bank. And finally, step 4, this is where the magic happens. You constantly adjust. As you turn into the wind, your bank gets shallower. As you turn away from the wind, it gets steeper. It's like this continuous dance with the airplane and the wind.
Okay, so we know how to do it in theory. Now let's talk about the common pitfalls, because there are a few. But don't think of these as mistakes, really. They're more like the key hurdles every single pilot needs to get over to really master this thing.
I've found there are about 5 main traps that tend to catch new pilots when they're learning this. So let's just walk through them because, honestly, just knowing what they are is half the battle. First up, trying to enter the turn before the plane is stable. Not trimmed up, not holding altitude. That's a classic. Second, getting the wind wrong right from the start. A huge one is forgetting to add just a little bit of power in the turn to maintain your altitude. Then you have the tendency to either use way too much bank right at the beginning, or you get the opposite problem, where you're too timid and you're afraid to make those constant little adjustments you need. Trust me, everyone's turns are a bit wobbly at first.
So, after all that practice, after all those wobbly circles, what's the real-world payoff? Well, this is kind of the pro pilot's secret. This maneuver isn't just about passing a check ride. It is about building the skills you will literally use on every single flight.
Think about it. This skill is the absolute foundation for flying a perfect traffic pattern around an airport. It is the core concept behind lining up for your final approach, especially in a crosswind. And it's vital for understanding wind correction when you're flying cross-country. See, every single time you need to make that airplane follow a precise path over the ground, you are using the skills you learned flying that one simple circle. So, we come all the way back to our original question. Is flying in a circle for an hour a waste of money? Or is it where you build the muscle memory, the sight picture, and the wind correction instincts that form the very foundation of true airmanship? I think by now, the answer's pretty darn clear.